The chill of the bathroom tiles bit at my bare feet, a stark contrast to the burning confusion in my gut. That night, I didn't just step into a room. I stepped across a threshold, an invisible line in the sand of my own morality. It was a single, impulsive decision, born from a mix of curiosity and an unsettling, undeniable pull, and it shattered the carefully constructed world I knew. Every breath after that moment felt charged with a forbidden electricity. Every shadow in the house seemed to whisper a secret only I carried. My life, once predictable and calm, had been irrevocably derailed by the sight that met my eyes beyond that slightly ajar door. I knew, with a sickening certainty, that nothing would ever be the same again. This is my story, one of those crucial moments when a single choice changes everything. My name is Sarah, and I was, by all accounts, living a perfectly respectable life. I was married to Richard, a man whose steady presence was both comforting and, at times, a little suffocating. He was a good man, dependable, successful in his career, which often took him away on long business trips. Our home, a quiet suburban house filled with muted tones and the faint scent of old books, felt vast and still when he wasn't there. It was just me and his son, Ethan. Ethan was 17 then, a lanky, quiet boy with a mop of sandy hair and eyes that always seemed to be looking inward. We had a pleasant, if somewhat distant, relationship. I was the stepmother, a role I took seriously, but one that always felt defined by invisible boundaries. He was Richard's son, not mine, and that understanding shaped every interaction. I cooked, I cleaned, I offered homework help when asked, but our connection rarely delved beneath the surface. When Richard was gone, the house truly became silent, the kind of silence that amplifies every creak of the floorboards, every drip of a faucet, and every unspoken thought. It was one of those particularly quiet evenings. Richard had been gone for 3 days on a conference, and the house had settled into its familiar, somber rhythm. I was downstairs trying to lose myself in a book, when a sound from upstairs snagged my attention, the unmistakable rush of water from the shower. It was late, later than Ethan usually showered. A flicker of unease, or perhaps just simple curiosity, prompted me to pause. The water stopped, and then I heard the soft click of a door. I waited, expecting Ethan to come down for a snack or to say goodnight, but he didn't. Instead, another sound, a faint rustling, then a muffled sigh. I couldn't explain it, but something felt off. My heart gave a strange little thrum against my ribs. I rose from the sofa, the book forgotten, and found myself slowly ascending the stairs. As I reached the landing, a sliver of light escaped from the bathroom door, which was left ever so slightly ajar. My initial thought was simply to close it, to remind Ethan about energy conservation. But something held me back. A faint murmur, too soft to decipher, drifted out. My footsteps faltered as I neared the door, drawn by an impulse I couldn't name. Peeking through the narrow gap, I saw him. Ethan was standing by the sink, his back mostly to me, a towel clutched loosely around his waist. He was post-shower, droplets still glistening on his skin. He was looking at his reflection, a strange, almost pained expression on his young face. It was a private moment, one I immediately knew I shouldn't be witnessing. But instead of retreating, I found my hand reaching out, pushing the door open just a fraction more. The small creak of the hinge was barely audible, yet it was enough. Ethan's head snapped up, his eyes widening as they met mine in the mirror. He gasped, a small, choked sound, and instinctively tightened the towel, his face flushing crimson. A wave of something, shame, Yes, but also a peculiar surge of power washed over me. The air in the bathroom instantly thickened, charged with a sudden, palpable awkwardness. Ethan stood frozen, eyes wide, stammering apologies. I'm sorry, I thought. He looked like a startled deer, caught in the headlights. The flush on his face deepened, a painful crimson that matched the sudden rush of heat in my own cheeks. Instead of turning away, instead of offering a quick apology and leaving, I took another step. Then another. I closed the door softly behind me, the click echoing unnaturally loud in the small space. My voice, when I spoke, surprised me with its calm, reassuring tone, almost a murmur. "Ethan," I said gently, "it's okay. There's no need to be embarrassed. Is everything all right? You seem upset." He finally lowered his gaze, his shoulders slumping. He clutched the towel tighter as if it were a shield against an unseen threat. I didn't think anyone was home," he mumbled, his voice barely a whisper. I moved closer, my hand gently resting on his arm, a gesture that felt both natural and utterly transgressive. "Ethan," I repeated, my voice softer now. "You can tell me anything. What's bothering you?" He hesitated, clearly warring with himself. His eyes flickered up to mine, filled with a raw vulnerability that tore at something inside me. I don't know," he finally managed, then quickly added. "It's just my body. I don't like it. I feel wrong." His words hung in the air, laden with a teenage insecurity that was painfully familiar, yet unsettling in its context. He began to confess, his voice gaining a little more strength as he spoke of his anxieties about his developing physique, how he felt inadequate compared to his peers, even compared to his own father. My heart went out to him, or so I told myself. A part of me, the nurturing stepmother, genuinely wanted to help. But another, darker part saw an opening, a delicate thread of trust that I could pull. "Oh, Ethan," I murmured, my hand now stroking his arm, a comforting gesture that lingered perhaps a moment too long. "You shouldn't feel that way. It's completely normal. Most boys go through similar things." He looked at me, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "Really?" he whispered. "I just feel not like a man. Not like Dad." My response was swift, almost automatic. "There's absolutely nothing wrong with you, Ethan," I insisted, my voice laced with a conviction that felt disturbingly manipulative even as I uttered it. Then, the true help began. "Sometimes," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, my gaze fixed on his, "it helps to understand. To see for yourself that everything is exactly as it should be." Before he could react, before he could even process what I was suggesting, my hands were moving. Slowly, deliberately, I reached for the towel that covered him, my fingers brushing against the still damp fabric, then the warm skin beneath. Ethan tensed, a sharp intake of breath, but he didn't pull away. He just stood there, eyes wide, a deer caught in the headlights once more. My touch, initially meant as a comforting, almost clinical gesture, became something else entirely. It became an exploration, gentle but firm, lingering, assessing. The tension in the room coiled tighter and tighter, a silent electric current passing between us. He was breathing heavily now, and so was I. My fingers, instead of retreating once I had supposedly checked, continued to move, tracing lines, confirming curves. This was no longer about reassurance. This was about something far more dangerous, far more primal. When I finally stepped back, my hands trembling slightly, his eyes were still locked on mine, a mixture of shock, confusion, and a strange nascent awareness flickering within them. "Thank you," he finally whispered, his voice raspy, barely audible. I needed that." The days following that bathroom encounter were shrouded in an unsettling quiet. The atmosphere in the house, already subdued by Richard's absence, now thrummed with an unspoken tension, an invisible cord connecting Ethan and me. He was more withdrawn than ever, but it was a different kind of withdrawal. Before, it had been the aloofness of a typical teenager. Now, it was a contained energy, a shy avoidance that spoke volumes. His eyes would dart to mine across the dinner table, then quickly look away, a faint blush creeping up his neck. I found myself obsessively replaying every moment of that night, dissecting my words, my touch, his reactions. Guilt gnawed at me, a sharp, insistent pain in my chest. I had crossed a line, a monumental one, with a vulnerable young man. He was my stepson, for God's sake, and I was supposed to be a guardian, a source of safety. Instead, I had exploited his raw insecurity, his desperate need for reassurance. But beneath the guilt, a dangerous current of exhilaration pulsed. The power I had felt, the way he had responded to my touch, the absolute trust he had placed in me. It was intoxicating. I wrestled with my conscience. I told myself I was helping him, that I had merely offered comfort to a boy struggling with his identity. I rationalized that it was a one-time thing, a moment of weakness, an act of empathy that had simply gone a little too far. Yet, the memory of his quiet gratitude, the way his breath had hitched, the intensity in his eyes when our gazes met, kept pulling me back. It felt wrong, utterly, completely wrong, yet I couldn't deny the perverse thrill it had ignited within me. Sleep became a battlefield of restless thoughts, replaying the scene, imagining what might have happened, what could still happen. I found myself subtly seeking out his presence, inventing excuses to be in the same room, to steal glances at him, to see if he was looking back. The quiet house, once a symbol of loneliness, now felt like a clandestine stage for our unspoken drama. My initial shame began to morph into something else, a complex mixture of regret, desire, and a terrifying sense of inevitability. I knew I should put a stop to it, should confess, should somehow erase that night. But the thought of doing so felt like tearing a piece of myself away. The tension simmered for days, a palpable heat beneath the surface of our everyday interactions. Then, one afternoon, Ethan found me in the kitchen, washing dishes. He approached me slowly, hesitantly, his usual quiet demeanor replaced by a nervous energy that vibrated in the air around him. "Sarah," he began, his voice barely a whisper, barely audible above the running water. I turned, my heart immediately beginning to pound. This was it. The confrontation, the apology I dreaded, or the accusation I deserved. But what he said next shattered any remaining pretense of normalcy. I think I've developed feelings for you," he confessed, his eyes wide and vulnerable, a raw honesty in them that both horrified and strangely, deeply, moved me. After that night, you were the only one who understood, the only one who made me feel seen. The words hung in the air, a declaration of a forbidden connection, born from a moment of profound vulnerability and my own deeply flawed response. My mind screamed no, screamed about Richard, about the impossibility, about the sheer wrongness of it all. But my body had other plans. In that moment, faced with his open, aching confession, my resolve crumbled. I stepped closer, my hand reaching out, not to push him away, but to cup his cheek. His skin was warm beneath my palm, and his eyes, still filled with uncertainty, searched mine. Instead of rejecting him, instead of delivering the responsible, adult response, I leaned in. Slowly, deliberately, I closed the small distance between us. My lips met his, tentatively at first, then with a sudden, overwhelming surge of something akin to desperation. He responded instantly, his arms winding around my waist, pulling me closer, returning the kiss with an intensity that surprised me. It was raw, urgent, a release of all the pent-up tension that had been building between us. My hands found their way to his hair, pulling him closer still. The world outside the kitchen, the reality of my marriage, of his youth, of the sheer impropriety of it all, faded away. We stumbled backward, away from the sink, his hands moving to my back, mine tracing the lines of his shoulders. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathless, he leaned his forehead against mine. "Thank you," he whispered again. The same words he'd uttered that night in the bathroom, but with a new, profound meaning. I needed that. So much. As I looked at his flushed face, at the gratitude and longing shining in his young eyes, a chilling realization washed over me. I had seen his vulnerability, and instead of protecting it, I had exploited it. I had manipulated his innocence, his desperate search for acceptance, molding it to fit a burgeoning, illicit desire within myself. Our journey, as I called it, had indeed just begun. But it wasn't a journey of healing or growth for him. It was a journey into a forbidden territory, one born from a betrayal of trust, and fueled by a darkness within me I never knew existed. The questions spun in my mind. What had I truly unleashed? And could I ever pull back from the edge I had so carelessly, so selfishly stepped over? This is just the beginning of a story woven from uncomfortable truths and choices I can't undo. Have you ever faced a moment where one decision irrevocably altered your path? Where the line between right and wrong blurred so completely? Share your thoughts below, discreetly, of course. And if these hidden narratives resonate with you, make sure to subscribe to Silent Truths for more deeply personal and raw stories that challenge what we think we know.